As photographers, it is very easy for us to get caught up in doing more. More trips, more images, more content, more gear. But over the past few years, I've found that the biggest improvements in my photography haven't come from doing more, they've come from slowing down and being more intentional. In my last video, I talked about my 2026 content plans. In this one, I want to talk about the photography principles that sit underneath those plans. The ideas that guide how I shoot, how I think, and why I pick up a camera. Now, this isn't advice, it isn't a set of rules that anybody needs to follow. These are simply principles that I've developed over time through experience, frustration, and a lot of reflection. And they've helped me reconnect with photography over the past few years in a way that feels honest and sustainable. And they're shaping both my work and my content as I move further into 2026. Over the years, I've photographed some incredible places here in the UK, and I've been fortunate enough to make several trips to Iceland. But my photography has never been about collecting locations, chasing places just because they look impressive. For me, the location is a backdrop. What matters far more is what I'm trying to communicate through my images. Over time, I've realised that the images that I connect with the most usually start with intention, even if that intention is subtle. Before I even take my camera out of my bag, I often ask myself a simple question: what am I trying to say here? Sometimes it's about scale or solitude, and other times it's about calm, tension, movement, or even discomfort. And often it comes back to that ongoing relationship between people and the landscape, the marks we leave behind, and how nature responds. Now, a good example of this is an image that I took at Hornsea on the East Yorkshire coast of the offshore discharge pipe that allows water to flow from Hornsea Mere into the North Sea. Now, on the surface, it's not a traditionally beautiful subject. But the intention behind that image was about contrast and consequence, the meeting point between nature and human impact. Without that intention, it would simply be an image of a pipe going into the sea. With it, the image becomes about something bigger. Another example of this is an image that I took at Vestrahorn in Iceland over a body of frozen water. Now, the mountain is obviously dramatic, but the image was never meant to be about the mountain itself. It was about the stillness in the frozen water, the movement in the sky captured using a long exposure, and that brief moment where everything came together. And those images didn't come from chasing a look, they came from having a reason to press the shutter button. That sense of intention is something that I'm deliberately carrying with me into 2026. Now, having that sense of intention gives me direction, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee me a meaningful image. Even with a clear idea in mind, the photograph needs to hold something deeper than just a concept. Now, this is a concept that took me a little while to fully understand. For years, I placed a lot of importance on technical perfection. Sharpness, clean compositions, ideal light, and everything controlled. And while those things still matter, I started to notice a pattern. Some of the images that I was most proud of technically were also the ones that I felt the least connected to. At the same time, there were other photographs, sometimes taken in bad weather, sometimes imperfect, but these ones seemed to stay with me longer. And the difference wasn't technique, it was connection. An image that really highlights this for me is one that I took of the collapsed cave in Anastapi in Western Iceland. Shot from the very narrow, very sketchy top of the cave opening that sits over the sea on a very wild and windy day. But when I look at that image, I remember exactly how it felt to be there on that day. The noise, the wind, the atmosphere, and the sheer rawness of the place. That emotional connection means far more to me now than technical perfection. These days, I care less about whether an image is flawless and more about whether it holds a feeling. And letting go of that pressure has made photography feel lighter and more enjoyable. Once I stopped chasing perfection and started paying attention to how images made me feel, something else shifted as well. I realised that I didn't need to rush the process anymore. Slowing down has probably had the biggest impact on my photography out of everything that I've changed over the years. I used to feel like I needed to be constantly moving, always searching for the next composition, and always thinking that the next frame might be better than the one in front of me right now. Now, I try to do the opposite. A good example of this is an image that I took of the drinking dinosaur at Flamborough, again on the Yorkshire coast, whilst I was on a coastal walk with my daughter. It wasn't a planned shoot, and I wasn't chasing conditions or trying to come home with something specific. We were just spending time exploring the coast, moving slowly, and just being present in the landscape. And because the pace was slower, I noticed things a little differently. The shape of the rock, how it interacted with the sea, and how the scene felt rather than how it might look on a screen. So that photograph came from observation rather than urgency. Slowing down allowed me to respond to the place instead of trying to force an image out of it. And that shift has carried over into every part of my photography. It's helped me notice quieter moments, more subtle details, and compositions that only really reveal themselves when you stop rushing. Slowing down turns photography back into an experience again, not just something to be achieved. And slowing down changed not just how I photograph, but how I measure success. And that naturally led me to rethink the influence of everything happening outside of the camera. Now, social media and I have a very weird relationship, and we always have done. But social media, trends and comparison can quietly shape how you photograph, even when you think they aren't. There was a point where I found myself judging images based on how I thought they might perform, rather than how I felt about them. And that can be a difficult place to create from. Moving into 2026, I'm far more interested in making work that feels more honest and meaningful to me, even if it's quieter and less immediately eye-catching. Now, that doesn't mean ignoring the audience by any means. It just means not letting external validation dictate creative decisions. Now, when you put all of these ideas together, intention, connection, slowing down, they begin to shape more than just individual images. They influence how I plan projects, how I approach trips, and how I create content. In 2026, you're going to see fewer rushed shoots and more considered work. More emphasis on process, reflection, and storytelling, and not just the outcome. Now, the content may be slower paced at times, but the aim is depth rather than volume. And I want everything that I share to feel aligned with how I actually experience photography now. If there's one thing that I hope you take away from this, it's that photography doesn't have to be loud, fast, or perfect to be meaningful. It can be slower, it can be quieter, and it can evolve as you do. Okay, so if you're watching this and you're feeling a little stuck creatively, maybe ask yourself this one simple question next time you head out with the camera. Why am I taking this photo? I genuinely love to hear what principles matter most to you right now, whether that's slowing down, storytelling, or something completely different. So let me know in the comments. I'm always interested to see how others approach their work. Now, if this video helped or resonated with you at all, please give it a thumbs up. I really would appreciate it. And if you're interested in photography that focuses more on intention, process, and connection, then please consider subscribing to the channel. All right, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for spending some time with me, and I will see you in the next one.